Habits shape the course of life. Each action repeated becomes part of your character. The Stoics understood this clearly. They taught that the mind and body are trained daily by repetition. Every small decision builds a path. Good habits lead to strength, clarity, and virtue. Bad habits lead to weakness, distraction, and loss of direction. To live with purpose, one must take control of habits. Breaking bad habits is not only about stopping destructive actions, it is about replacing them with actions that create growth. The Stoics believed that philosophy is practice. They applied reason to life, using each day as a test of discipline. Bad habits were seen as chains that bind the mind. Freedom is found by breaking these chains and forming a better order. This video explores 9 ways to break bad habits forever and guarantee growth. Each way is grounded in Stoic wisdom and practical application. The lessons are not abstract theories. They are guides that can be applied directly. The Stoics believed philosophy was useless if it remained in words alone. Its purpose was transformation. Let us walk through these lessons step by step. Each chapter will focus on one way to remove bad habits and strengthen growth. The path is demanding, but the reward is a life shaped by reason, discipline, and resilience. Chapter 1. Recognize the habit as a chain. The first step is awareness. You cannot break what you do not see. The Stoics stressed the discipline of attention. They urged constant observation of the self. Seneca wrote that the greatest obstacle to progress is failing to see our own faults. Recognition is liberation. Once you name a habit, it loses the power of invisibility. Habits often hide in routine. They feel automatic. You may not question them, but the Stoic trains the mind to slow down and ask, "What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Does it serve reason or impulse?" Each answer reveals the true nature of a habit. A person who never pauses to ask these questions will continue living on patterns that were formed without care. A person who develops the discipline to ask gains the power to reshape those patterns. By treating a habit as a chain, you see its weight. You see that each repetition adds to its strength. Habits grow through reinforcement. Each time you repeat the behavior, it becomes more automatic. The link tightens. The path becomes more fixed. To break the pattern, you must stop reinforcing it. This requires awareness. Awareness is the tool that begins the separation. You cut the first link by seeing what you are doing and how often you are doing it. Most habits are invisible until you observe them directly. They blend into your routine. You wake, move, speak, react, and repeat. The behavior feels normal because it has been practiced often. You do not pause to question it unless you train yourself to notice. This is why the Stoics valued the practice of examining one's own mind. Observation builds the distance needed to interrupt automatic behavior. Clarity does not appear without effort. You must become the observer of your own life. This means stepping back from each action long enough to see the thought or feeling that led to it. Each habit has a trigger. Each reaction has a cue. To break the chain, you must trace its links backward. Begin at the surface, what you did. Then dig deeper, what you felt. Then ask, what belief supported this act? When you understand the entire chain, you can start to disassemble it. This is where change begins. You are no longer trapped inside the habit. You are outside of it, examining its parts. Each layer of understanding gives you more control. Each step makes the next choice more deliberate. This requires more than occasional thinking. It requires consistency. The Stoics used daily reflection to sharpen their self-awareness. They did not wait for a crisis to inspect their character. They practiced daily review. This allowed them to stay ahead of their faults rather than be surprised by them. Writing helps anchor this process. It forces your thoughts into form. It removes the vagueness that allows habits to stay hidden. A journal becomes a map. You record what you see. You notice repetition. You highlight cause and effect. With daily entries, patterns begin to form. You no longer rely on memory. You rely on evidence. Judgment must be suspended during this process. Your task is to observe, not to condemn. Judgment clouds the view. Clarity depends on honesty. Write what happens. Note the time, place, emotion, and action. Do not justify it. Do not defend it. Just write it. When you collect this information, you build awareness. When you have awareness, you have choice. Nightly reflection strengthens the clarity further. Ask yourself simple questions. What did I do repeatedly today? Where did I act without thinking? Where did I act with purpose? These questions train the mind to filter through experience. The answers reveal where you need to focus. The act of writing at night allows you to see the full arc of your behavior. You catch what your daytime attention may have missed. The Stoics aim to live in agreement with nature and reason. This cannot happen if you are ruled by habits that remain unseen. The habit you ignore continues to grow. The habit you observe becomes subject to change. Each time you write, you strip the habit of its hidden advantage. You reduce its power by exposing its form. The ground of discipline is made firm through attention. Without attention, discipline becomes guesswork. With attention, discipline becomes action rooted in truth. The Stoic builds discipline through repetition, observation, and correction. Awareness makes all three possible. What is seen can be corrected. What is hidden cannot. The act of naming a habit begins to separate you from it. The more often you observe and record, the more distance you create between who you are and what you do. This distance is not detachment, it is control. You gain the ability to direct your life rather than be pulled by automatic forces. Habits are not broken in a single moment. They are broken through a process of consistent interruption and redirection. Awareness is what makes this process possible. Every step you take toward clarity moves you closer to freedom. What you see, you can change. What you change, you reinforce with new strength. This is how you break the chain. This is how you build the foundation for disciplined living. Chapter 2. Replace, do not only resist. The Stoics knew that nature abhors a vacuum. When you remove something, you must replace it with something better. Marcus Aurelius advised directing the mind toward virtue whenever it is distracted. To break a habit, you cannot depend only on resistance. You must channel the energy elsewhere. When you try to stop a habit by simply holding back, you create an internal gap. That gap must be filled. If you do not fill it with something useful, it will be filled by whatever is most accessible, even if it leads to the same destructive pattern. The mind looks for something to do. Attention needs direction. If it is not given a better target, it defaults to the one it already knows. Resistance alone is limited. It can stop a behavior in the short term, but it does not change the internal structure that supports the behavior. Habits are built from repetition, emotion, memory, and identity. If you only remove the action without building a new structure, the old system remains active. The mind still seeks the same reward. The nervous system still expects the same stimulation. This creates pressure to return to the habit. To change behavior, the body and mind need a new pathway. This pathway must be specific, realistic, and useful. It must give the person a direction to follow when the urge to return to the old pattern appears. Without this new direction, the mind will revert to what is familiar. This reversion often happens in moments of fatigue, stress, or uncertainty. To prevent it, a new structure must be installed. Redirection creates that structure. It gives you something to do rather than something to avoid. If you want to stop lashing out in anger, Give yourself a clear response to use instead. That may include stepping outside, writing your thoughts, or speaking a single sentence to pause the situation. If you want to stop wasting time online, prepare a list of useful actions you can do the moment you feel the urge, such as standing up, stretching, or reading one paragraph of a book. Even the smallest redirect gives your brain a new rhythm. Habits depend on energy. If you cut the flow of energy by offering a new outlet, the old pattern loses strength. You do not need to erase every memory or urge. You need to change the direction of your energy at the moment it appears. This teaches your system to respond differently to the same trigger. The brain learns by association. If you respond to stress by taking a walk instead of eating mindlessly, the new association begins to form. That association grows stronger with each repetition. Structure creates safety for the nervous system. It gives the brain a clear role and predictable reward. Without this, the brain enters confusion, and confusion often leads back to the oldest and most familiar loop. This is why a plan must be in place. The new action must be ready before the trigger appears. If you wait until you are already caught in the pattern, it becomes harder to redirect. By preparing the replacement in advance, you reduce hesitation and increase your chance of success. Relapse is often a result of emptiness. The person stops the habit but leaves a gap in behavior, time, and emotion. That gap becomes a void that calls for attention. The brain returns to what it knows. To prevent this, the gap must be filled with action that supports your values. It must be something you do by choice, not something that happens by accident. Choice gives strength. Passive reaction keeps the old behavior alive. The more you practice the new action, the more your body expects it. The repetition creates rhythm. Rhythm becomes habit. Habit becomes character. You do not need to rely on constant thought to maintain it. The structure begins to support itself through consistency. This is how long-term change begins to take root. Make a clear list. Identify each habit you want to break. Next to each one, write a replacement that is easy to remember and easy to execute. Simplicity matters. If the replacement is too complex, it becomes a burden. You must be able to apply it quickly in a moment of stress or temptation. If you overthink the response, you lose momentum. Make it as automatic as possible. For example, if your habit is procrastination, your replacement may be to work for 2 minutes, just to begin. If your habit is overreacting, your replacement could be a phrase you repeat silently to center your thoughts. If your habit is distraction, your replacement may be placing your phone across the room when working. These small shifts create new responses. Each one builds momentum for the new path. Repetition is more important than intensity. You do not need to change everything in one day. You need to create a reliable pattern. That pattern makes the new behavior feel normal. As normalcy shifts, the new action becomes your default. You are no longer resisting a habit. You are living in a different structure. At the end of each day, review your effort. Did you use the replacement? Was it easy to apply? What made it easier or harder? Use these questions to refine your strategy. Every answer builds awareness. Every adjustment makes the process smoother. Your behavior becomes guided by deliberate action, not by reaction. The replacement becomes the new foundation. It supports growth. It restores control. It brings you closer to the version of yourself that acts on principle. With steady practice, your mind begins to choose the new path naturally. You no longer feel the pull toward the old loop. The old habit fades because it no longer receives attention. The new one grows because it is used daily. You are not waiting for change. You are training it. You are shaping behavior through intention, clarity, and repetition. The Stoics taught that we must take responsibility for what we practice. Each act of redirection is an act of strength. Each repetition of the replacement reinforces your values. This is how a new life is built, step by step, decision by decision, habit by habit. Chapter 3. Train discipline with small acts. Discipline is not formed in great moments. It is formed in small acts. Epictetus taught that philosophy is training. Each day is an opportunity to rehearse control. Breaking a bad habit requires training the will. Large habits can feel overwhelming. But small acts build strength until larger challenges can be faced. Discipline does not rely on intense motivation. It depends on repetition. It begins in small actions that are easy to overlook. These small acts shape the foundation of mental control. They test your ability to choose direction over impulse. When you succeed at small acts, you prove to yourself that self-command is possible. Small acts are measurable. They give you a clear result. If you choose water over sugar, you have practiced discipline. If you hold your words when angry, you have practiced discipline. These choices build a track record of control. The repetition creates confidence. That confidence becomes a tool you can use in more difficult moments. Start with one act each morning. Delay one comfort. Finish one task without distraction. Choose the harder path once a day. These simple steps train the mind to act without being pulled by emotion or convenience. They develop restraint and clarity. The person who can say no to a small urge becomes the person who can say no to a larger temptation. When a bad habit appears, you rely on what you have trained. If you have built discipline in small ways, you will have more strength to resist the automatic pull of the habit. You are not caught off guard because you have practiced control consistently. You are less reactive because you have trained your attention to stay on what matters. The Stoics often practiced voluntary discomfort. They exposed themselves to cold, hunger, or silence. These were not punishments. They were rehearsals. They trained the body and mind to remain steady under pressure. They reminded themselves that comfort is not necessary for peace. This prepared them for life's uncertainties. The same principle applies to habits. If you want to resist the pull of an unhealthy behavior, you must train your response through discomfort. You do not need to suffer, but you do need to challenge yourself. You create small moments where your will can act. These moments build resilience. They build a mind that does not collapse under stress. Discomfort strengthens the mind when it is used with purpose. It builds familiarity with effort. When something is familiar, it feels less threatening. You become more prepared to face it. When you challenge yourself daily, discomfort becomes a normal condition rather than a crisis. The mind learns that difficulty is not danger. It is training. Voluntary discomfort is an exercise in readiness. You place yourself in controlled difficulty to grow your ability to respond. This could be through physical discomfort, such as cold exposure, fasting, or delaying comfort. It could be mental, such as staying silent when you want to interrupt or finishing a task without checking your phone. The focus is not on suffering. It is on choosing an action that demands effort and refusing the easy path. Each time you resist ease, you send a message to your mind. You tell yourself that you are not ruled by comfort. You act based on values, not urges. The repetition of this process builds an internal record of strength. This record becomes the foundation of future choices. You start to expect discipline from yourself because you have trained it. When you skip one indulgence, when you hold silence, when you complete a task without looking for distraction, you confirm to yourself that effort is possible. These actions form your daily posture. They create the structure that protects you when life becomes chaotic. The more often you rehearse control, the more reliable your control becomes in unpredictable moments. Each act of control becomes part of your internal structure. It is stored in your memory and in your habits. Repetition makes the act feel natural. You do not need to force discipline through motivation. You act because you have prepared yourself to act, You no longer need constant reminders. You simply follow the internal pattern you have built. Start small. Choose one act of restraint each day. Do it with clarity. Delay your morning coffee. Stand instead of sitting. Write a short journal entry when you want to scroll. These are minor decisions, but they carry weight. They train your ability to notice an urge and respond with intention. Make this daily. Select one restraint and repeat it for 7 days. Do not change it unless it becomes automatic. If it feels difficult at first, this is useful. You are training your response to discomfort. If it becomes easy, add a new restraint or increase the duration of the current one. Track your response and make sure you apply it fully each time. Other small acts can include standing still in line without looking at your phone, eating without stimulation, waking up at the same time each morning, even on weekends, committing to a morning workout, even on days when you don't feel like it, or walking without headphones. Each of these is a deliberate break from ease. They create micro-resistance that sharpens your control. These exercises are not about intensity, they are about consistency. When practiced daily, they create an identity of reliability. You start to believe that you are someone who follows through. This self-image supports discipline. You are more likely to act with control when you see yourself as someone who acts with control. You learn to pause before reaction. You create a space between stimulus and response. That space is where decision happens. When this space exists, it gives you time to choose. It gives you the ability to shift from impulse to intention. If you build it through repeated action, it becomes your normal mode of operation. This space is the foundation of freedom from automatic behavior. It allows you to direct your life instead of being dragged by habit. This space is created through discipline. It does not appear instantly. It is built by stepping back from urges, pausing before you act, and making the smallest choice toward clarity. Each moment you delay a reaction gives you practice. The more often you do it, the more naturally it happens. Eventually, you expect yourself to pause. You create a pattern of steady control, and that control becomes your default. The mind becomes a servant of intention. It is guided by thought rather than pulled by noise. Each act of restraint makes this more possible. Each time you finish a task or delay an urge, you send a signal to your mind. Stay present, stay firm. These signals add up. They shift how you think about effort. Effort becomes useful. You stop seeing restraint as loss. You begin to see it as focus. Each completed task builds the system stronger. The pattern of control creates more control. You become consistent without needing force. You are not adding pressure to your life. You are removing the clutter that blocks your path. You are replacing confusion with order. You are reducing hesitation by installing structure. Discipline grows through steady practice. It is not built in crisis. It is built in calm moments by training your response. The Stoics trained themselves through daily challenge. They chose to face discomfort so they would be ready when difficulty arrived. They removed ease from their routines so they could build strength in silence. This training was part of their life, not separate from it. This method can be applied in any life, regardless of circumstance. It does not require wealth, status, or special conditions. It requires choice. It requires attention. It requires repetition. Anyone can begin. Each person has the capacity to train restraint, and through that, to shape the way they think, act, and respond. Action aligned with reason becomes easier when it is supported by repetition. Repetition creates fluency. The more you align action with intention, the more natural the process becomes. You are no longer depending on motivation to guide behavior. You are depending on the internal structure you have trained. That structure becomes your support. It holds you when energy is low or distractions are loud. You do not wait for clarity. You act on what you know is right. You follow your chosen values even when no one is watching. You follow your routine even when it feels dull. You complete the work even when ease is available. These decisions form the base of discipline. This is how discipline becomes a habit. This is how the body and mind move together under the command of reason. Each act, no matter how small, contributes to this structure. Each repetition strengthens the foundation. Each moment of control pulls you further from reaction and places you deeper into intention. Every step builds the path. Every step makes the next one more certain. This is the shape of a disciplined life. Chapter 4. Reshape identity through action. The Stoics believed that character is built through action. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You are what your thoughts and actions make you." A bad habit is not only an action, it becomes an identity. To break the habit, you must reshape identity. The person you become is shaped by what you repeat. Habits are not isolated events. Each one is a reflection of a value, a belief, or a tendency. When you act with distraction, you become a person who lives without attention. When you delay action, you become a person who hesitates. When you follow your impulses, you become a person who lacks command of self. Over time, repetition builds identity. You begin to believe you are that person. This is why change must start at the level of self-perception. If you only try to change a behavior without addressing who you believe yourself to be, the change does not hold. It feels forced. The identity pulls the behavior back. The action will always seek consistency with the self-image. To interrupt this cycle, ask, who am I becoming through this habit? What kind of person acts this way? What does this pattern say about what I value? These questions clarify the connection between habit and character. When you become clear about the direction your habits are leading you, you regain the ability to redirect. The Stoic does not act without reflection. He looks at each pattern and decides if it aligns with the person he intends to become. His actions are not just reactions to the moment. They are expressions of deliberate design. Each choice is a step toward a character that is stable, disciplined, and just. Identity is built from repetition. The more you act in a certain way, the more natural it feels. If you act with restraint, you become a restrained person. If you act with purpose, you become purposeful. If you act without thought, you become reactive. These are the building blocks of identity. The Stoics understood this. They trained themselves through practice, not appearance. To reshape identity, begin with intention. Write a personal statement that reflects your highest values. Do not make it abstract. Make it clear and usable. For example, I am a person who finishes what I start. I use my time with care. I respond with calm. I do the difficult work without needing praise. These are not goals. They are reflections of who you are choosing to be. Use this statement as a compass. Review it each morning. Act in a way that matches it throughout the day. Use it to evaluate your behavior at night. If your actions align, identity becomes stable. If they do not, adjust. This process builds clarity. You do not need to convince others. You need to build consistency between what you believe and what you do. The more you align your actions with your chosen identity, the less room there is for the old habit. The new identity makes the habit irrelevant. It no longer fits who you are. When a destructive urge appears, return to your statement. Ask yourself, does this belong to the person I've chosen to be? If the answer is no, you already have your response. You are not making a random decision. You are protecting your character. This kind of structure gives strength to your effort. It removes uncertainty. You know what to do because you know who you are trying to become. This allows you to respond with clarity rather than hesitation. The identity becomes a standard. You do not lower it to match your urges. you raise your action to match your values. Identity-driven change is durable. It is not based on mood or environment. It is built on self-definition. When the identity is repeated enough through action, it becomes real. You begin to expect better from yourself. You hold yourself to a higher standard, and that standard becomes natural. Write your identity in visible places. Keep it in your journal. Repeat it silently in moments of challenge. Let it remind you what you stand for. Let it guide your action before habit has a chance to take over. This is how the Stoics shaped themselves. They did not wait to see what kind of person life would make them. They chose the type of person they would become, then aligned their behavior to that image. This is how you break the link between the habit and the self. You no longer say, "I can't help it." You say, "This is who I am now." Each act aligned with this new identity weakens the old pattern. It removes the mental permission to continue the habit. The action no longer fits the self. It becomes easier to leave it behind. The chain breaks when the person no longer agrees to carry it. The habit dies when the identity no longer protects it. This shift does not come from external motivation. It begins from within. It starts when a person draws a clear line between who they are and who they no longer wish to be. Each repeated action that supports a new identity chips away at the structure of the old habit. Transformation is a product of design. It is built by constructing behavior that reflects intention. Clarity removes confusion. When the person defines what they stand for, decisions become easier. They stop asking what they feel like doing. They start asking what aligns with the person they are committed to becoming. This standard creates direction. Consistency is the material that holds the structure together. Without repetition, no change becomes stable. Each time a person acts in alignment with a clear identity, the link to the past behavior becomes weaker. The brain stops associating the old habit with identity. It starts forming new pathways that reinforce the updated character. The mind needs proof to believe in change. That proof is given by deliberate, repeated action. Deliberate repetition does not mean perfection. It means persistence. It means showing up even when the result is small. It means holding to the standard even when the old pattern tries to return. Each deliberate action becomes a signal to the self. It says, "This is who I am now." The more often that signal is sent, the more deeply the identity is embedded. This is how transformation happens. Through clear intention, through consistent application, through conscious design of behavior that reflects chosen values. The person becomes new not through sudden force, but through reliable repetition. They do not break the chain in one motion. They weaken it link by link until it no longer holds. Chapter 5. Design your environment for success. The environment you live in shapes your behavior. The Stoics understood that surroundings influence thought, action, and discipline. While they taught that the wise person carries their peace within, they also acknowledged the importance of setting up life in a way that supports virtue. A person constantly surrounded by temptation will face more resistance. A person who clears space for clarity creates a smoother path for change. Habits do not exist in isolation. They are triggered by cues. These cues come from the environment. If the cue remains, the habit can return. If the cue is removed, the habit weakens. For example, if you struggle with mindless eating, keeping snacks visible makes the habit stronger. If you want to use your time better, keeping your phone near you at all times creates friction against focus. The smallest environmental detail can shape large patterns. To break a bad habit, redesign your space. Identify where the habit takes place. Study the cues. What time does it happen? What is nearby? What are you looking at, hearing, or holding? Remove the objects or conditions that make the habit easier. Replace them with tools that support the behavior you want. If you want to read more, keep a book where your phone used to be. If you want to journal, place your notebook in the spot you usually sit. Use sight, touch, and sound to shape your path. Design is more powerful than willpower. When your environment pulls you in the right direction, your energy is preserved. You do not need to argue with yourself. You act with less resistance. The new behavior fits into the space. You walk a path that was made for the choice you intended. This makes discipline sustainable. It makes action natural. Create systems that prevent the habit before it begins. If your habit is late-night screen use, set a timer to shut off the device. If your habit is delay, create a visible list of one task to begin. If your habit is staying in bed too long, place your alarm across the room. These small designs shape large outcomes. The Stoic mind is not only internal, it is supported by structure. Build your life to reflect your values. Let the objects, sounds, and routines around you reflect the person you are becoming. This is how you shape your surroundings so they stop pulling you backward. This is how your environment begins to protect your discipline instead of testing it. Chapter 6. Make your standards visible. The Stoics lived by principles. Their daily conduct was guided by values they had studied, reflected on, and written down. Marcus Aurelius journaled his reminders to himself. Epictetus taught that every action should pass through the filter of reason. Seneca wrote letters not to entertain, but to reinforce virtue. These men treated their values as tools, not decorations. They kept them visible, accessible, and active. To break bad habits, you must do the same. You must bring your standards out of the abstract and into the physical world. When values stay in the mind, they fade under pressure. When values are written, repeated, and seen, they become part of your frame of reference. They begin to guide action before impulse takes control. Write down your standards clearly. Do not use vague statements. Use precise language that describes the type of behavior you will accept and the type you will reject. For example, I do not skip the work I have planned, or I remain calm even when interrupted. These are not goals, they are instructions, they are anchors. Place these instructions where you will see them daily. On your desk, in your journal, on your wall, in your daily planner. These statements remind you of who you are training to become. They provide stability when emotion rises. They act as your guide when distraction appears. You do not need to search for your values if you have already placed them in sight. Repetition is key. Read them every morning before the day begins. Review them at night. Add a short reflection on how well you followed them. When you see where you fell short, rewrite the next day with greater intention. These adjustments create a self-directed feedback loop. It is calm, disciplined correction. It is continuous improvement without self-punishment. The more often you apply your standards, the more they shape your behavior. Habits begin to form around them. You do not rely on feeling motivated. You rely on the system you created. That system is built from the values you made visible. This is how the Stoics moved from theory to practice. This is how you keep your principles active. You do not wait to feel strong. You remind yourself of the kind of person you are becoming, then act in a way that matches that image. Keep your standards close. Make them easy to remember. Let them shape your days. This is how you stay on your path when everything else pulls you away from it. Chapter 7. Build a chain of consistency. Consistency is one of the strongest forces in behavior change. The Stoics believed that stability of character was not created in one act of virtue, but in the repeated alignment of choice with reason. They did not pursue excellence in moments. They built it in patterns. A habit weakens when it is interrupted repeatedly. A new habit strengthens when it is reinforced consistently. Each repeated action reinforces the structure of your mind. The choices you make today influence how easily you will make those same choices tomorrow. If your actions are scattered and inconsistent, your internal structure will lack stability. If your actions are aligned and repeated, your internal foundation becomes solid. The Stoics aimed to live in agreement with nature, and part of that agreement was harmony between thought and behavior. This harmony is created through consistency. Each time you repeat an action, you are casting a vote for a type of person. If you want to become disciplined, every disciplined act supports that identity. If you want to be calm, each measured response becomes part of that training. These are not abstract gestures. They are building blocks. One act alone will not shift your character. A chain of acts will reshape your direction. A consistent structure forms a reliable identity. To create this chain, focus on the daily application of your standard. Choose one behavior that reflects the identity you want to strengthen. Keep the behavior simple. Focus on what can be done every day without excuse. Track it visually. Use a calendar, a notebook, or a habit tracker. Each day you complete the behavior, mark it. This mark is not a celebration. It is a record. The goal is to see a pattern. The longer the pattern continues, the stronger your internal discipline becomes. The pattern creates momentum. Momentum makes future decisions easier. You do not start from zero each time. You continue a process already in motion. This reduces hesitation. You no longer need to think about whether to act. You know what to do because the chain is already in place. The work becomes part of your day. The decision becomes expected. The Stoics would review their day each night. This was not only reflection, it was accountability. They would ask themselves, did I live according to reason? Did I follow what I know to be right? This nightly habit kept their attention fixed on consistency. It allowed them to see where their actions matched their values and where they drifted. This process was simple but powerful. It helped them correct errors without delay. It made improvement a part of the daily rhythm. The strength of the chain is in its simplicity. It does not demand a dramatic change. It demands a repeated one. You do not need to reshape your life in one motion. You need to show up for the same act, day after day. Each repetition adds weight. Each mark reinforces the path. Each act of control teaches the mind what to expect. If you miss a day, return the next. The gap does not erase the chain. What breaks the chain is abandoning the effort. Avoid missing 2 days in a row. The second miss creates a new pattern, one that leads backward. The return must be fast. Discipline is not measured by perfection. It is measured by repetition. The person who returns again and again becomes reliable. That reliability builds trust within the self. You are building more than a habit. You are building a system that defines your behavior. That system becomes your reference when conditions change. Even when you feel off course, the structure remains. It reminds you what to do. It gives you stability when emotion or fatigue would otherwise control your decision. Each day you repeat the act. You remove the friction from your progress. You eliminate the need for debate. You replace doubt with execution. You begin to act from rhythm, not reaction. This rhythm is the core of discipline. Let your record show your direction. Track your effort clearly. Mark your behavior without judgment. Let your consistency shape your confidence. Each mark is proof of effort. Each completed day is evidence of growth. This is how the Stoic builds strength, not by force, but by structure. Not by will alone, but by the quiet repetition of what is required. Chapter 8. Remove the language of excuses. The Stoics placed great value on clear thinking and direct speech. They believed that vague language weakens action. Excuses often begin in language. The way you speak about your habits reflects the way you think about them. If your language is unclear, your standards are unclear. If your language allows escape, your actions will follow that escape route. Language reveals beliefs. When someone says, "I didn't have time," what they often mean is that another priority took its place. When someone says, "I'll try," what they signal is a lack of commitment. These patterns of speech train the mind to accept weakness without challenge. The words become a layer of comfort that shields the mind from responsibility. To break bad habits, remove the language that protects them. Stop saying, "I'll try." Stop saying, "I didn't have time." Stop saying, "I couldn't help it." These are not facts. They are softened stories. They remove responsibility and delay correction. Each time you repeat them, you train your mind to see the habit as stronger than your ability to act. The Stoics believed that philosophy is a discipline of truth. That includes truth in speech. Speak directly about what you did and did not do. Say, "I chose not to do it," instead of, "I was too tired." Say, "I acted from impulse," instead of, "I didn't mean to." This kind of language may feel harsh, but it gives you control. It shows you the decision that was made, and if there was a decision, there can be a different one next time. Language creates boundaries. When your speech is vague, your standards are weak. When your speech is clear, your standards become visible. You begin to draw a sharp line between what is acceptable and what is not. This line helps protect your intention. It keeps your goals from dissolving into stories of avoidance. Each time you remove an excuse, you clear space for a standard. You make the boundary sharper. You make your position more firm. This does not create shame. It creates clarity. You are no longer confused about what happened. You are precise. That precision is the beginning of strength. Write down the excuses you use. Do this without judgment. Collect the words you rely on when effort is avoided. These may include phrases like, "I'm too busy," "I don't feel ready," or "I'll start tomorrow." Study these phrases. Ask yourself what belief each one contains. Then rewrite them. Replace them with statements of fact and action. Say, "I avoided effort." Say, "I delayed a choice." Say, "I did not act on what I planned." These sentences are short, but they sharpen your awareness. Language is not just communication, it is also conditioning. When you practice direct language, you condition yourself to act with less hesitation. You reduce confusion by eliminating vague explanations. You give your actions a foundation that is solid, not flexible. This strengthens your commitment. Use this new language in your journal. Use it in your self-reflection. Use it in your planning. If you said you would complete a task and you didn't, write the truth. Do not add decoration. Do not soften the event. Say what happened, why it happened, and what you will do next. This approach helps you learn quickly. It shortens the gap between mistake and correction. Clarity in speech supports clarity in behavior. The more honest your language becomes, the more direct your behavior becomes. You no longer soften the truth, you face it. That habit of facing truth becomes part of your posture. It becomes a protection against drift. It becomes a tool for growth. This is how the Stoic removes confusion and builds clarity, by choosing words that support reality and guide action. This training is lifelong. You will notice new patterns of excuse as you push further. Each one is a signal. Each one is an opportunity to raise your standard. The fewer words you need to explain your choices, the stronger your character becomes. Truth in speech leads to truth in action. This is how you make your path direct, your mind honest, and your discipline firm. As you grow in self-awareness, the excuses may become more subtle. They may sound reasonable. They may take the form of polite justifications, careful delays, or surface-level explanations. You must learn to detect these forms with precision. They are still barriers to action. They still dilute clarity. Pay attention to phrases that soften your responsibility. These are the early warnings of lowered standards. You can use each discovered excuse as an entry point for improvement. Ask yourself, what truth am I avoiding in this sentence? What action would replace this phrase with clarity? Use these answers to rewrite your inner script. Train yourself to say less and do more. When the impulse to explain arises, respond with action instead. Each honest word you use builds internal strength. When you speak clearly to yourself, you think clearly. When you think clearly, you act clearly. There is no need for elaborate justification. There is only alignment between decision and value. The less you explain, the more you move. This kind of discipline becomes part of your posture. It creates an inner structure that supports integrity. When you commit to clarity in language, you reduce wasted energy. You use that energy to act with focus. You no longer circle around decisions. You execute them with simplicity and resolve. This is not a temporary strategy. It is a lifelong framework. Each excuse you remove strengthens the foundation of who you are. Each clear word replaces uncertainty with order. This is how the Stoic lives, with minimal distortion, with direct thought, and with words that serve reality. Chapter 9. Return to the work. The Stoics taught that philosophy is a practice. It is not something to be admired from a distance. It must be applied daily. The same applies to personal growth. The process of breaking bad habits and building strength is not completed in one breakthrough. It must be renewed again and again through action. You will have setbacks. You will lose focus. You will fall back into old patterns. The Stoics never denied this reality. What they emphasized was return. They taught the value of resuming your principles without complaint. The moment you notice yourself off track, that is the moment to resume. Do not wait. Return to the work. Progress is made by those who continue. You do not need to feel ready. You do not need perfect conditions. You need to begin again from where you are. Each return reinforces the identity you are building. It says, I do the work. I return when I drift. I correct myself with action. This mindset protects against the trap of all or nothing thinking. It teaches you that falling does not cancel growth. What matters is whether you resume. Each day is a chance to return with more clarity and more strength. The Stoics measured growth by consistency of principle, not perfection of result. The work you return to may be simple, it may be small, but its repetition gives it power. When you come back to your habit tracker, your written standards, your morning practice, or your daily reflection, you confirm your commitment. You prove that your discipline is not based on emotion, it is based on values. This steady return is the root of all lasting change. The Stoic does not expect the path to be smooth. He expects himself to keep walking. This is what builds resilience. This is what strengthens character. You fall, you correct, you continue. You keep showing up for the next act of discipline. This is how momentum is restored. This is how mastery is built.